Hi students, welcome to session 3 of Respiration in Organisms. In today's session, we are going to study about respiratory system in plants. But before starting and studying about the respiratory system in plants, let us revise about the respiratory system in humans. Yes. Students, we studied that the major function of the respiratory system is gas exchange between the external environment and an organism's circulatory system. In humans and mammals, this exchange facilitates the oxygenation of the blood with the concomitant removal of carbon dioxide and other gaseous metabolic wastes from the circulation. So students, as gas exchange occurs, the balance of the body is maintained, the acid-base balance. Upon inhalation, gas exchange occurs at the alveoli, which are the tiny sacs which are the basic functional component of the lungs that we saw in the previous session. So these alveolar walls are extremely thin, and this whole mechanism of gas exchange is carried by the simple phenomenon of pressure difference. When the atmospheric pressure outside is lower than that of the lungs, then the air from the lungs flow out. And when this air pressure is lower inside, then the vice versa occurs. Hence it is very clear that we breathe out the waste gas, that is carbon dioxide. And this can also be demonstrated through a very simple experiment. You can just dip a straw into the lime water and breathe into it. You will observe that the lime water turns milky. So carbon dioxide, this is the carbon dioxide gas which turns the lime water milky, hence showing that the air we breathe out is filled with carbon dioxide. Right? So we studied about inhalation, exhalation. That is all included in the respiratory system in human beings and other mammals. But have you ever gave a thought, students, that how do plants respire? Yes, like other living organisms, plants also respire for their survival. So let us study about respiratory system in plants. Yes, students. Like other living organisms, plants also respire for their survival. They also take in oxygen from the air and give out carbon dioxide. In the cells, oxygen is used to break down glucose, which is their food, into carbon dioxide and water as in other organisms. In plants, each part can independently take in oxygen from the air and give out carbon dioxide. So we have already learned that the leaves of the plants have tiny pores, which is called stomata, which is used for the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So like all other living cells of the plants, the root cells also need oxygen to generate energy. Roots take up air from the air spaces present between the soil particles. So, can you guess what would happen if a potted plant is overwatered? Well, we have also learned about the respiration, which is a vital biological process. So, all living organisms need to respire to get the energy needed for their survival. But as we human beings breathe, plants do not have such system with which they can breathe. Instead, in plants, food that is manufactured is in the form of starch, which needs to be broken down to release energy. So respiration is a vital function in plants. It is represented by this chemical reaction. Starch, which is actually a form of sugar, plus oxygen. So with the help of oxygen, this breakdown of food takes place in plants, and it finally releases out carbon dioxide plus water plus energy. So basically, they have also some openings through which they respire. Plants use carbon dioxide gas in the process of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis means with the help of sunlight they prepare their food, and with the help of carbon dioxide also they prepare their food. So basically, plants use carbon dioxide as in the process of photosynthesis, and then they release out oxygen gas as a waste product of photosynthesis. But respiration is the opposite of that. Here, the equation which we are looking at is actually the process of respiration. However, plants also sometimes respire as humans do, like as we saw in this chemical reaction, like taking in oxygen and giving out carbon dioxide. But plant respiration is limited by the process of diffusion. So this is the beautiful diagram which shows that plants respire through tiny holes or openings called stomata. The singular one is known as stoma. Right? So these are the guard cells. This is the nucleus, which helps them in stomatal opening and closing, because of which water can enter and exit out. Remember the process? Transpiration? Yes. Plants take in carbon dioxide through holes on the undersides of their leaves known as stomata, singularly called as stoma or pores. However, most plants require little air. So most plants have exclusively few living cells outside of their surface, because air which is required for their metabolism can penetrate very deeply. However, most plants are not involved in highly aerobic activities. Aerobic activities means the activities taking place in the presence of oxygen, and thus they have no need of these living cells. So basically, what happens in these plants is merely a question of how the balance is maintained between the processes of photosynthesis and respiration. So what happens is that plants, they use carbon dioxide gas in the process of photosynthesis and release oxygen gas as a waste product of photosynthesis, while respiration is the opposite of that. The equation which we saw, which we studied, was the chemical reaction of respiration, means in which plants respire as humans do, by taking in oxygen and expelling out or releasing out carbon dioxide. Right? So in this way, the balance is maintained between the environment and these plants. Here you can see one beautiful structure of stomata. This is the open stomata and this is the closed stomata. We know very well that these are present in the chloroplast, and the guard cells, they help in the opening and closing of stomata, because of which stomata traps in air and the exchange of gases takes place inside the plant cells. Oxygen is absorbed and carbon dioxide is given out. So basically, even roots which are buried in the soil must have oxygen for the plant to survive. Plant roots typically take in oxygen that is available in the small spaces between soil particles, and they give off carbon dioxide. And if the roots cannot respire, they cannot produce the energy which is necessary to actively take up minerals from the soil. So, for proper root respiration, farmers plow or till the soil so that the tiny air spaces are created around the soil particles. How amazing it is! Remember students that respiration occurs throughout day and night, whereas photosynthesis, it occurs only during the day when sunlight is present. That is why it is termed as photosynthesis, because the synthesis, the making of food or the preparation of food in the plants is done only in the presence of sunlight. Now you must be thinking that how do plants or animals live in water, because in water there is no oxygen. Oxygen is present in atmosphere. But students, remember that aquatic plants and animals survive in water by utilizing dissolved oxygen. Means the sources of this dissolved oxygen are direct absorption from the atmosphere, and they're released during photosynthesis by aquatic plants. So whenever this dissolved oxygen is released by the aquatic plants, aquatic animals breathe through their skins. They take in this dissolved oxygen through their skins, while many aquatic animals have gills through which they breathe in. And aquatic plants directly exchange gases with the water surrounding their leaves, stems and roots. So in this way, the respiration process takes place in plants. Right? So that was all about the respiratory system in plants. After studying about the respiratory system in plants, now let us study about aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Students, we have learned that respiration occurs in the presence of oxygen as well as in the absence of oxygen. So, respiration on this basis is primarily of two types, that is aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. So students, the processes leading to and including the chemical breakdown of food materials to provide energy for life is called respiration. And these processes occur inside the living cells of every type of organism, whether it is plant or animal. And for this reason, it is also called internal or cellular respiration. So basically, in aerobic respiration, oxygen is needed, and in anaerobic, oxygen is not needed. Respiration is hence a burning process. During burning, the energy that is released is all in the form of heat. So, we will study about aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration in detail. So, the first one which we are going to study is aerobic respiration. Students, in aerobic respiration, oxygen is needed, so this must be taken from the surroundings or from the air or water by the process of gaseous exchange. In complex terms, respiration can also be defined as a process that occurs inside cells in which carbohydrate, particularly glucose, is broken down to release energy. Glucose or sugar or starch is broken down to release energy that the cell can use. So, this energy is used for many different processes, but in all of them, energy transfer occurs. The processes range from muscle contraction to the manufacture of protein for new cells. So, respiration is a key feature of life. So, aerobic respiration is the process of respiration that takes place in the presence of oxygen, and that is why it is termed as aerobic respiration. And this results in the release of energy and in the formation of carbon dioxide in water. And so it is represented by the chemical equation as sugar plus oxygen, which gives out energy plus carbon dioxide plus water, energy in the form of heat. So aerobic respiration is basically the complex process of chemical reactions in which oxygen is used to break down glucose into carbon dioxide and water, and energy is released. So sugar, with the use of oxygen, releases out carbon dioxide, water and energy. Remember students that in aerobic respiration, however, the energy is released in a controlled way and it is less released as heat. But most of the released energy is used to drive various processes in the cell, such as for the growth or movement. So all organisms are made up of small microscopic units called cell. As we discussed that a cell is the smallest structural and functional unit of an organism. So each cell performs certain functions such as nutrition, transport, respiration, reproduction, etc. So to perform these functions we need energy, and this energy is derived from respiration. The food has stored energy which is released during respiration. During breathing also, we breathe in air that contains oxygen, and when we breathe out air which is rich in carbon dioxide. So basically the oxygen filled air is transported to all parts of the body and ultimately it reaches to each cell. In the cells, this oxygen helps in the breakdown of food by cellular respiration. So cellular respiration takes place in the cells of all organisms. Hence, respiration is carried out by all living cells. Although the process is called cellular respiration, cells do not actually breathe as organisms do. Instead, they take in a supply of nutrients that they use for energy and they release the unneeded parts of these nutrients once they are done. In our bodies, as with most organisms, cells take in simple sugars and break them apart in the energy. So that energy molecule that cells create stores in our body for carrying out various activities. So this is how aerobic respiration is the most efficient form of respiration. The reaction involved in this process is similar to that of combustion or burning. So on this basis, we will discuss the differences between aerobic respiration and combustion. So let us discuss some of the differences or the differential points between aerobic respiration and combustion. Yes, students. So the first difference between aerobic respiration and combustion is that in aerobic respiration, energy is given out gradually, while in combustion, energy is given out suddenly. The second difference about aerobic respiration is that energy is given out in such a form that it can be used by the organism. While in combustion, energy is given out in the form of heat or light. So it cannot be used by the organism. The third difference is that energy is stored inside the body in the form of ATP. Here it is stored in the form of ATP. ATP means adenosine triphosphate. It is adenosine triphosphate. Whereas in combustion, energy is not stored in the form of ATP. But in aerobic respiration, energy is stored in the form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is an energy-rich molecule which can be used whenever needed by the organism. So these are the basic differences between aerobic respiration and combustion. So we are through with aerobic respiration. Now let us study about anaerobic respiration. Yes, students, the process of respiration that takes place in the absence of oxygen is called anaerobic respiration. An means without. That is why it is termed as anaerobic. So basically, it is a kind of respiration that takes place in the absence of oxygen. In this case, glucose is only partially broken down and the end products are energy and either lactic acid or ethanol, which is a form of alcohol or ethyl alcohol, and carbon dioxide. So this process is termed as fermentation. Means organisms that do not require oxygen to survive are called anaerobes. For example, yeast. Likewise, many microorganisms can respire anaerobically for long periods of time or all the time. Even yeast, which is one of the examples, that respires aerobically if oxygen is present, but if there is no oxygen, it respires anaerobically. So glucose or sugar, with the help of oxygen, gives out carbon dioxide, ethyl alcohol or energy. Or basically we can say sugar without the use of oxygen, not with the use of oxygen. Sorry to say that. Sugar or glucose without the use of oxygen gives out carbon dioxide, ethyl alcohol plus energy. So basically, our muscle cells can also respire anaerobically, but only for a short time, when there is a temporary deficiency of oxygen in our body. Like during heavy exercise, fast running, cycling, walking for many hours, or heavy weight lifting, the demand for energy is high, but the supply of oxygen to produce the energy is limited. So, in that case, glucose or sugar without the help of or without the use of oxygen is converted into lactic acid and energy in muscles. So anaerobic respiration takes place in the muscle cells to fulfill the demand of energy. So always remember that our muscle cells can also respire anaerobically, but only for a short period of time. Right? And during heavy exercise or such sporty work, the demand for energy is high. In humans, anaerobic respiration can be carried out only for a short time, and it occurs in our muscle cells when there is not enough oxygen supply. So this happens when we are doing heavy work or exercise. However, many microorganisms such as yeast, bacteria and fungi can respire only anaerobically. The exceptional case is the yeast, when in the presence of oxygen they will respire aerobically, while in the absence of oxygen they will respire anaerobically. Right? So that was all about the aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Remember that in order to break apart glucose or any other potential energy molecule, the cells use an oxidation process, means taking in oxygen atoms and using them to break apart and reassemble the food molecules. So cells in our body get oxygen from our breathing process, which is why the term cellular respiration ties in, but not all the cells need oxygen to produce energy. These alternate processes, called more specific names like fermentation in specific cases, are referred to as anaerobic cellular respiration. Right? So that anaerobic cellular respiration and all other types of respiration you can study. We will study its more complex processes in higher classes. That was all about the respiration in organisms. I hope you liked today's session and you learned much about respiration. So we will meet in the next session with a new lesson. Till then, keep learning and have a nice time. Thank you, students.